A writing tablet and lead pencil, please.
And some chalk. I want some white sugar.
Little House on the Prairie. It dominated television for years. It made superstars out of its cast, and it set a new standard for what a TV family could be. So then, why did Little House on the Prairie end at all? Was it infighting between the leads, sabotage from within, or something darker? And what's with blowing up the entire town? Why so violent? Anywho, saddle up folks, cause we're trotting down memory lane today to see what went wrong at Walnut Grove. Sit back, get comfortable. I'll be your host, Nostalgic Nick with Do You Remember, telling you about the perfect storm that drove Little House off the air. If I don't talk about your favorite episode or your favorite character, well, tell me down below. But now, without further ado, come on and let's head off. Production costs. The bottom line is studio executives are always looking at meeting, well, the bottom line, which is defined by how many Benjamin Franklins a project can bring in, for better or for worse. Little House definitely was a merchandising team's dream, with all these distinct characters to make stuff based off of. Heck, even today, the merch machine is trucking along with books, dolls, clothing, and of course the right to stream the show that defined a decade. But at that time, executives had to think about how much the show brought in and how much they were putting into it. You know, my home ec teacher once told me about this. Good old cost-benefit analysis. It just pops up everywhere. Like when I weighed the benefit and cost of having ice cream for breakfast as a kid. The math always said, go for the ice cream. Okay, moving on. Production just became too pricey. In fact, the network was pricing things out so much they were even grumbling about how expensive it was gonna be to shut the place down. You know, just dismantling all the buildings they put up around the set. You know it's bad when you shut down because of price and then have to worry about the price of shutting down, yeah. And sure, some of the Little House episodes were calling for some pretty wild stuff. Anything with fire can get really tricky really fast, because they have to account for so many safety logistics. You know, how the flames will burn, all the technical stuff to keep everybody safe. And so, the plot lines were basically demanding more from the network's wallet. But wait, does that mean the show wasn't bringing in enough to match this growing financial demand? Well, pretty much, but why? What was going on to even make the budget an issue in the first place, and force wilder, or should I say Ingalls Wilder, scenes hit harder? Well, it turns out quite a few things, actually. Actors growing out of plot lines. 9 seasons is a long time for any show to go on. Like, a really long time. But hey, I'm getting wistful just thinking about it. Because shows nowadays, you know, barely get 2 seasons, or they're canceled after 1. Sometimes they get made and they get scrapped, and you never see them. Oh yeah, the television landscape is really grim today. I mean, we had it so good back in the 70s and 80s. Our pick from a huge buffet table. But there is a trade-off to a long run time. The dreaded overstaying your welcome, you know. Even before all that, the younger actors were changing. They were growing. They were going through puberty. It's actually similar stuff to what the Brady Bunch and even Bonanza went through. With the Brady Bunch, of course, also having children going through puberty. And Bonanza had the sons getting too old to warrant needing dad's approval for every decision. Well, in Little House's case, viewers started off watching Laura Ingalls, played by Melissa Gilbert. You know, half pint, daddy's little girl that we all wanted to protect. And then, as the years went on, suddenly she's a wife, a mom. That classic familiar drawl of a father's bond with his young child was kind of gone, and there was no realistic way to recapture it. Even Michael Landon knew it wouldn't work, and you knew he had his fingers in every part of the production pie. Acting, directing, writing, all that jazz. He said, and I quote, "I didn't think a married woman should still be coming to her father for advice. When we started this show, we never imagined it would last that long." You gotta respect his honesty and his clarity. But this was just one nail in the proverbial coffin that led to the final blow to Little House's chances on air. On the greater TV landscape, big things were changing that were completely out of the actors' control. Changing of the TV tides. Executives are always tuning into what's hot. The 60s treated us to a bunch of fantasy-themed shows and magical rivalries. You know, you had Bewitched and Genie, The Addams Family, and The Munsters. because frankly, that's what society needed at that time. And you can bet your baseball card collection that we've already talked about those shows a lot. We have some great videos, so check those out next. And then came the quaint suburban sweep that gave us the likes of Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, and of course the Andy Griffith Show and all things Mayberry. Now these were sweet, they were idyllic, and it was all thrown in the trash by CBS because the Great Rural Purge. Times were changing, and settings were moving, heading out of Dodge and making for the big city. Of course, Little House called NBC its home. So yeah, different network. But through CBS, we really got a feel for the television landscape changing. Culturally, things were changing what viewers wanted to see, and thereby the stuff executives wanted to make. Frankly, it might be a miracle that Little House lasted as long as it did, until, well, it didn't. Let's take a look at this write-up by the Museum of Broadcast Communications. It reads, quote, "By the late 1960s, many viewers, especially young ones, were rejecting rural-themed shows as irrelevant to modern times. Mayberry's total isolation from contemporary problems was part of its appeal. But more than a decade of media coverage of the civil rights movement had brought about a change in the popular image of the small southern town. Walnut Grove is way less sugary sweet than Mayberry, and that's not a dig at either place.
Except the dummy is much better looking."
But it's the same quaint, quieter vibe from both. The show was running on borrowed time, while this rural purge was taking out shows left and right, just one network down the block. Now personally, I think Little House managed to defy the odds by giving us that rustic setting, while also being unafraid of getting its hands dirty, sprinkling in some drama for the town, some imperfections for our heroes to grow from, and plenty of lessons that paired well with the time and the ever-present civil rights movement. And if you weren't convinced the big shift away from rural, rustic settings played a part in the downfall of Little House, I present to the court Exhibit B. NBC's next big series was a far departure from that, Miami Vice. It premiered just 1 year after Little House ended, and cruised the boulevard until 1990. Times were a-changin', and Walnut Grove had to get blown to smithereens so something new and shiny could take its place. But did the worst bit of sabotage come from inside the cast and crew's own ranks? Cast departures. So here's a trivia question for you. We followed the Ingalls & Company for some, I want to say 203, 204 episodes of TV, but no one appeared in every single episode. So, who has the most Little House episodes under their belt? Leave your guesses in the comments below, and we'll give the answer in 3, 2, 1. All right, surely the answer is Michael Landon, right? Well, no. Actually, the honor goes to Half Pint herself, Melissa Gilbert. Yep, the free-spirited tomboy herself, Laura Ingalls, 190 episodes. In terms of appearances, we could call her the glue, and her journey through adolescence was definitely such a huge part of the show's heart. But there's no denying Michael Landon brought a ton of star power, plus just good old well-rounded talent, thanks to Bonanza. He had a ton of say in the creative direction Little House went, and for better or worse, kept every day of shooting on track. It's part of his messy, conflicting jobs with the production. Allison Arngrim gives us the best picture of what it was like working with Landon. She said, quote, "He was like a big kid himself. He loved to laugh and do practical jokes. It's crazy because we worked at a furious pace, and he was a real taskmaster." So it's not surprising that Landon is the close competition for most episode appearances. But Michael had passions apart from starring in front of the camera. And so, instead of doling out wisdom, toppling evil business baddies, fixing up houses, or any of that as America's favorite pa, Landon stayed behind the camera, fine-tuning the writing, production, and directing 89 episodes. 21 more than the next most prolific director. Not everybody was thrilled to have Little Joe pretty much call all the shots, and I mean pretty much all of them. There was a point where whatever we saw was purely a result of what Michael Landon wanted. It drove one of the guys, co-executive producer Ed Friendly, up the wall, and drove him to get out of Dodge stat, or that is, Walnut Grove. Ed Friendly's biggest complaints were that Landon gave the Ingalls family too cushy a life out on the prairie, and in general just strayed too far from the books, which I can confirm definitely painted a tougher picture of prairie life. But Landon's also the one who once called the Little House novels a bunch of cookbooks, so take that as you will. In fact, one time, Friendly sat down for an interview with People magazine and gave a not-so-friendly review of Landon's direction. He said, and I quote, "I've renamed the series How Affluent Is My Prairie? They have everything but a Cadillac." Okay, but now I want to see the Ingalls reacting to a Cadillac, like everyone going crazy over the talking machine. I know Allison Arngrim's always saying she's up for a reboot. We could actually make this happen. Sorry, getting ahead of myself there. It's also worth mentioning that while Friendly didn't have many friendly words for Landon's creative vision, that didn't mean fans agreed. Little House offered escapism, just enough of the unfamiliar to be thrilling, but not so historically accurate that we got slogged down by the same chores the Ingalls would need to do. And that gave the plots and characters room to breathe however much the creative team wanted. And it put the show's wholesome values front and center too, so it was basically a character in its own right. Cindy Landon, who we might remember as Cindy Clerico, the young Little House makeup artist that Landon married, summed it up pretty well. I know she's a bit of a biased source, but she's also an informed one. She said, quote, "If you watch Little House, truly it was like watching Michael. The love that he had for his family, the type of person he was, and it was all apparent." And backing up that review was Melissa Gilbert, who said, quote, "The show's values were absolutely a reflection of the values of our leader, of Michael Landon. He was that man. He believed that people are always really good at heart." Landon was the fundamental bones of the entire project, like a visual symbol of everything we knew we'd get from Little House. But he disappeared from the camera, and nothing felt the same. Melissa Sue Anderson agrees so much. She's not up for doing any Little House reboot, revival, sequel, whatever, because there'd be no Landon, and as far as she's concerned, Landon was the heart of the show. And fans sure as heck felt that. And that means they sure as heck felt his absence. It just wasn't the same. The network even knew it too. Things were so different not having him around. They couldn't even just call the last season Little House on the Prairie. Nope, it was Little House on the Prairie, a new beginning.
Things do change, though. That's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Season 9 was packaged to us as technically something we knew, but not quite the same. And it was never the same again. Well, that stinks, huh? But we still got the rest of the gang, right? Wait, where's everyone going? Mary Ingalls going blind was definitely one of the standout plot points in the whole series.
I can't see.
It was actually the very first time we saw a main character lose their sight and then just not get it back. No walking the plot back, no magical fix, they committed to it. And Melissa was sure this was gonna be horrible, that it was gonna spell the end of her time on Little House. This is it. This is how they're gonna write me out of the script completely. But then Landon said, "Hey, trust me." And so she did, and wouldn't you know it, her absolute standout masterclass performance netted Melissa an Emmy nomination. So deserved, but it should have been a win. That paid off in the end, but the writers did paint themselves into a corner because it limited what Mary could do. And when the dust settled, well, Anderson saw only one option for her to have any real work. She explained, quote, "As far as what Mary could do, my character became limited because she couldn't see. This, ultimately, is the reason why I decided not to stay with the show and only do 3 episodes in the 8th season. This is getting a bit concerning. Good thing we got Ma here to help everything be okay, just like always. And what a performance, too.
My husband will be in to pay the bill in full by the end of the week. Well, good day, Mrs. Olson."
Apparently, Grass Lee based her Ma on her own mother, combined with the tough and sturdy lady she learned about reading the Little House books. If that's not reliable, I don't know what is. With the new title for the 9th season, Little House had to deal with all the kids growing up and flying the coop all over the place. And so Pa and Ma became way less of a focus, to the point of practically disappearing by 82. Probably for the better for poor Karen if the horror stories are true. She shared some pretty grim stuff about Landon making filming a nightmare, from really crude jokes to refusing to give her more pay.
He started to tell these filthy jokes about the female anatomy
Plus, supposedly, TV wasn't really Karen's favorite as she's more of a stage actress by choice. But this trend just kept taking out one Ingalls after another. And stuff like that adds up. It subtracts from the one thing execs look at when deciding to keep the lights on or not. But Little House had one more way of shooting itself in the foot. On top of taking away all of our favorite characters, how did the show really cross the line on what viewers were willing to put up with? Let's see. Jumping the shark. Hey, you know this guy. Cool motorcycle, slick leather jacket, stylish hair. Oh, and of course, he's the guy that jumped the shark. Congratulations to Happy Days for creating a new term. Not so much congratulations for why it was created because you ran out of plot lines, but hey, it's the dangers that all our favorite programs face. The thing that makes us just a little bit scared to wish for one more season, one more come on, keep it going. Little House had the benefit of following a finished book series, but it also had 20 plus episodes a season for 9 seasons. Stuff gets added and embellished and tossed around, and no one's more sorry than I to say that Little House totally jumped the shark sometimes. Actually, they did it so bad, I think it might be more famous, or I guess infamous, for it than Happy Days. To this day, there are discussion forums everywhere full of fans reminiscing about just how unbelievable some of these episodes did get. I think my favorite is here on Reddit, throws in a bit of modern vernacular, but the title is just so effective. Little House got so unhinged by the later seasons. And another site has a list of some of the wildest episodes, and it's all from just the final season. It's reassuring to see so many people still haunted by Albert's final big plotline, with the morphine and leukemia and all that.
I can't breathe!
But you're all right.
I can't breathe!
You're gonna be all right.
I still like to pretend it all just worked out and ignore, all that other depressing stuff. There was a lot of that too. I mean, I can't watch that bit where Caroline goes to cut gangrene off of herself. Nope, no thank you, no thank you, no thank you. There's literally anything with Nancy. Mrs. Olsen's attempt at a hostile takeover, taking away Ma and Pa and replacing them with the carpenter and newspaper owner. The circus performer and the wild boy, I don't even know what to make of all that. Just wild and uncomfortable and absurd all around. Oh, who else remembers the orangutan? There had to have been other ideas out there. It's not the most traumatizing, but the one with Ma's almost cheating probably leaves the most sour taste in my mouth. Didn't feel right, So, we've got crazy decisions, a costly budget, and none of our familiar faces to at least help us maneuver through these dark times. What did all this mean for Little House? The worst kind of news a TV show can get. Ratings. You can't have all these factors working against a show, driving away a devoted audience, creative teams left without any good material or ideas, and all this is costing more than it's worth without paying the ultimate price. And for Little House, the show that so many of us loved, so many of us grew up watching, the price it paid was in the ratings. That final magical number that has to be just high enough for a show to live on. Heck, even when it is high enough, it might not live on to see another day. But for Little House, all these creative problems added up and snowballed into the ratings. The show began at number 13 in the Nielsen ratings and ended at number 29, so it wasn't a huge drop-off, but the show had run its course. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, even if it is just for a little while. Well, a little while was about a decade, so I'd say that's a win in anyone's book. So were you contributing to that Nielsen ratings back in the 70s? Were you watching Little House on the Prairie? What was your favorite season? Did any particular episode or plot line drive you away? Encountering that, what plot point was your absolute favorite? Finally, who was your favorite character in Little House on the Prairie? Please get down in the comments section and tell us all your fondest memories. Because, after all, we here at Do You Remember are nothing without you. If you enjoyed the video, which we sure hope you did, consider giving it a like and a subscribe so you always catch our latest deep dive. And while you're down in the comments section, tell us another show or movie or actor that we should cover next. But from my entire team here at Do You Remember, thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful little day.